the Weather Light, I believe. I know it's Urza. He built everything. He did everything. He's Urza.
Okay.
Got really ahead in
So,
life.
all right. So we're gonna have a discussion before we start making a deck. I don't know how long it's gonna take, but we're gonna go for it.
All right. What do you want to talk
Uh,
about, Tom?
I want to talk about the ban list because of a certain mechanic that came out, and every time a new version of this comes out, like everybody's like, "Oh, well, we got to talk about the ban list again." And it is. I should need to find.
For what format, though?
This is Commander.
Oh, Commander.
This is
Okay.
the Commander ban list. Uh, Give me 1 second.
I want Lutri off,
Okay.
off the ban list. It doesn't need to
No,
be on there.
we'll talk about it when we get there. Okay, so this mechanic, right? Learn.
Oh,
So
right.
people are like, okay, so well, we just don't get to use this. So Commander kind of learned. They learned.
Because they say, or
They
draw a
kind of
card.
learned. Yeah, they kind of learned that it can't be this version. It doesn't work in Commander. They know. They know it doesn't. And the reason why the like sideboard in particular has to stay away is because so many cards would get banned. So many cards would get banned. The wish cards are way too degenerate. Like, and also Karn in particular
Oh, yeah. I run that
would
card,
get
too.
banned. Karn would 100% get banned because with this Karn, you could just go grab.
Microsoft Lettuce. The old Microsoft Lettuce combo with them. And he
Yeah,
turns off their whole board.
yeah.
And
So
now you could still run this combo in the main deck. But
yeah,
I think it's just you're right. It's the access to have it on your sideboard that easily with cards to be like, hey, I'm going to grab this out of my sideboard.
and this is colorless. This
Hmm.
would get banned immediately. Immediately. This would not be allowed. All the colorless degeneracy that you can get from the sideboard with this Planeswalker, the insanity.
We
Like,
also, because I'm thinking, Tom, we also in recently too, we've had a lot of artifacts that had become like hate cards themselves. Like we had Dampening Sphere come out. We had the Sun Seal card, whatever that Planeswalker abilities can't be activated, and you draw a card or whatever it was. Um, we've had a lot of like there's a lot of artifacts that are just anti cards and being having access to like what am I playing against? It's like you have the perfect answer to everything just by going artifacts.
so
Or
this is
like
the one that would get banned for sure. Burning Wish. This is just too good. For a blue card, 2 mana outside the game, it's too good. Like there isn't even something for this cost. Like this is just too good. Like the wish cards would just be way too good. All
and
of
then
them.
the blue one is the one that searches for it. Instant glimmering is a multicolor, I think.
Yeah, like these are just way too good. Like it's absolutely too good. But this is the argument with these cards. So learn is very, very balanced. The cards don't really do much. Now, if they made some convoluted way to allow the learn spells, I wouldn't care. But to keep things simple, I would say just stay away from it. It's good that they added the discard or draw just to give it something to do, so it's not a completely useless card.
Hmm.
Even though this card's not amazing as is, but the learn part is what makes this great. So you can't use the learn mechanic in Commander. It's just never going to work that way. They made exceptions for the companions, because technically you have, a certain, size to your deck. But they made exceptions for the companions. There's already one companion that we can't use as a companion, which is Urion.
We can't use him
He's
at
just
all. He's not even legal in the main board. A 3 mana creature that copies into their sorcery. We have like three of
I'm
those
not
already.
talking about Lutri. I said Urion is not allowed to be used as a
Oh,
companion
right,
because
right.
you have to have a 20 or. There's also other cards like the one that you have to have a 200 or more card deck or whatever the blue
Yeah.
one is. There's a lot of cards that we just can't use. Like, but the thing is if we force everything to be used for Commander, like, don't we have enough? Like, we don't have to push for every single fucking mechanic to work in Commander.
No,
It's not viable. Not everything has to be made for Commander. Like, this is made for draft. It's made for standard. It's very good in standard. Learn has been ridiculously good in standard because the cards, like the sorceries, are just way better. Like having a 5 mana remove anything
Yeah.
is huge. Like being able to ramp, like get a land, gain 2 life, because there's a 2 mana colorless one that gets a land from your deck that you also gain life. And then you can go get like the 5 mana sorcery. There's one that makes tokens. Like there's a 7 mana one that makes a bunch of tokens. Like they're all great. Like for
In
those
like a limited
standards.
format.
Right. And as far as like those cards go, you could play them in your main board still. So like the learn cards, like here's one of them, the lessons. Like you could still play them in the main board. Like there's a card I bought actually that is a lesson card. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, this card's
Yo, that
busted.
solved the equation. I think
What
solve the
solved?
equation might be slight a mistake.
Well, yeah, solve the equation.
The
Very
fact
strong.
that it puts it to your hand and not the top in blue. I mean, I guess you say black does it. I don't know. I think blue gets to abuse it more though.
Where
Is it from the one of the commander decks? Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah.
So I like this card. This is great removal. Uh, I think it's fantastic. So it's exile target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 3/2 in red white spirit token. So it's a sorcery speed beast within that exiles it. So
Mhm.
slightly better, more mana cost, not at instant speed, not as good as just playing generous gift or beast within or
But it's
heroic.
also the creature has a slight smaller toughness.
Yeah, by one.
It gets shocked. I mean, hey, the difference between a shock and a lightning bolt potential.
Also, exiling matters.
It
Like
does.
we use our graveyard a lot. So this is this is great. Now it's a lesson, and you could just play it in the main deck. I just bought it. Like you don't have to adhere to playing them and whatever. So every time a new mechanic like this comes up, everybody wants to go and talk about the ban list again and talk about like uh should we make it legal or like whatever, should they make some convoluted rule to like try to make it fit. But again, not everything has to work for a commander. There are some cards that are just better to stay out of commander, like that we don't have to force everything. Like we
Mhm.
don't need, what's that Hedron card that you need 4 of them,
Oh
that are
yeah,
like one in exile, one that you own,
it's one in
like
play,
one in the
one in your
graveyard.
graveyard, one in
Yeah,
exile, and
one
then
in the
one in your
deck,
and then one in your hand.
one in your hand, right?
It's
Like
hand
I
play,
forget
graveyard, exile.
what it's called, but it's a blue card. Yeah,
It's
people
Hedron alignment, I believe.
like. I think that if they printed that card nowadays, now that Commander's the most popular format, I bet my left testicle that that card would have said that you could play 4 copies of this card, like Seven Dwarfs does. You know,
Yeah,
like
and
that.
it's also hexproof,
Right? Yeah. So
and it scries
that
you one.
that that card would have existed nowadays and said you could play like 4 of the, or like whatever. I don't know. I don't know what a fair number would have been, but because I think any amount would actually be kind of busted. Like I wouldn't say any amount. That's actually really strong. But I don't know. I don't know. They make it work somehow.
Yeah, but
Uh,
again, like I said, I don't think we need it.
yeah, no, exactly. Like you don't have to try to force everything. Like I know, like you guys want everything to work always. Like we finally got our rules fixed and got them in line. Like the commanders dying makes sense now. Like everything in the format is how it should be. We share the mulligan with like the normal rules, except we have a freebie because that's how multiplayer formats work. You get a freebie. Like everything is set and it's easy. We don't have banned as commander anymore, which I'm actually gonna bring up because I'm actually a fan of banned as commander, and I'm gonna show some cards in this list that could be unbanned if they weren't legendaries. Which is why we used to have Bandit's Commander. And actually, I was watching a couple people talk about this like a month ago or so, and they were like, "Look, Wizards, we got our big magic brains. Like, we can handle things being banned as Commander. Like, if we can't handle like things being banned as Commander, like, what are we? Like, come on, we can handle it. We can know that something is banned as Commander and make sure that we're not playing it like everybody's gonna tell you." Like we know. Okay. So getting past that, starting to get into some of these cards.
Black Lotus,
So
we should unban it.
just to yeah, just to say, my opinion is I think that the sideboard should just stay gone. If they want to make a ruling for lessons, it'd be confusing, but I'd be okay with it as long as they didn't release any ridiculously broken lessons, because a lot of them are very fair and balanced. Like that whole cycle is very fair and balanced. They did a good job with it. So I don't know.
No,
It's cool.
I agree with not having the sideboard and like using the mechanics of outside of game. For here's my big reason why EDH I think is a much more casual as compared to competitive. I know there is a CDH scene, but you want to compare that to like casual players. How many casual players are putting together a sideboard for like competitive play? Because that's usually where your sideboard would come up. Is like, okay, I need these cards to deal with this, this, and this. By implementing a mechanic that lets us work from our sideboard instead of just having it as answers for like a best 2 out of 3, because that's what the sideboard is for every other format. Okay, I win or lose game one. What do I do with my sideboard that helps me win? But now with some of the cards we have, like some sideboards are meant to just help their combo, and we see how that affects in like our
Yeah,
competitive formats.
have you seen how Legacy uses their sideboard for Storm? Burning,
Yeah,
they end with Burning Wish. They don't even play Tendrils in the deck because it's a dead card. They use Burning Wish to have an entire pool available to them so that they can get a card that's important to them at the time.
and so,
Like it's what makes Burning Wish and the Wish is so strong in Legacy, because Storm doesn't have to play dead cards.
so you,
Like,
and then you look, we're running into that with in standard
oh my
as
god,
well with
Eric,
like with the one fairy.
could you imagine? Well, yeah, like with Feo Wishes, could you imagine not having to play your combo pieces in the main?
That'd be really
Not
nice.
having to draw dramatic reversal and just having a tutor that is optional?
Mm.
Like, that's redonkulous.
Like there's
Like,
that.
not having to play dead cards at all. Like, imagine if Consultation and Tainted Pack could go to the sideboard.
Yeah, because isn't there one of them that where you have to exile the top 7 first before you do the effect? And so if one of your combo pieces in
The
that
Consultation is the top 5.
top fives, and if so,
Yeah.
if you just so unluckily happen to hit one of the things that you need in the top 5, that you're just boned. Like if you have to go for it, like okay, I have to go for it this turn. I don't have it, so I'll hope that it's not in the top 5. And you're like, well, there it is, GG.
Yep. That's how it is.
So yeah, I agree. I don't think it should be in a like we should have access to a sideboard in a set that format that is for the most part being played in a more casual sense. Because then the other thing you think about it, if we do happen, remember we're pods, we're not 1v1. You're not worrying about just your opponent's sideboard and what yours is. You're worrying about everybody's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly that.
Like, this card is just way too strong for formats like that. Same thing with Feo Wishes, like you said. Like, those cards get way better. Okay, so getting aside from that, we both unanimously agree that that should stay banned. Okay, so we don't have to talk about these because these are just banned because of the racial, stuff. We don't have to talk about them. They're banned in every single format, not just Commander. You're just never allowed to play them in any paper format. Okay, so do we even need to talk about this?
I think we should have it. It's a fair card.
Derek, this card is so stupid. All right,
Yeah.
so Ancestral Recall, 1 blue, instant, target player draws 3 cards. Seems kind of balanced to me. It's not as good as Divination.
Well, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'm gonna ban Tom for the rest of of our show.
Yeah, like, we don't even have to talk about this. Like, this is the no downside Brainstorm. Like, people misplay Brainstorm so much, so much. How many times I've seen people Brainstorm lock themselves because they're not fetching or tutoring or playing like a search, like anything. Like, this card just has no downside.
Or you play
spell that's ever been printed in Magic the Gathering history. No joke.
Also, trying to get a hold of an Ancestral Recall, how much that would even cost to pull one?
So I believe that Ancestral. Huh?
Exactly. So if
Oh
you're
yeah, it doesn't even have a revised listing because all the Power 9 never got printed in revised. It was just a dual lands.
so
So
so even if
all,
it did become unbanned, it would be a CDH card only because no one would casually pick up a 5 grand card
oh
for
yeah,
a
but
beta.
who's gonna proxy it, Derek? Everybody.
Yeah, everyone would proxy it, be like, "Well, we have recall." Honestly, I like the ones that cards that are like ancestral recall but have conditions to get to them, like the one for mill or the one that with suspend, because it makes interesting ways to try and if you
Dude,
want to try and
the
abuse
one
it.
with suspend is really cool in the deck that Drew made recently, Cody, because Cody has like a pseudo cascade. He has like sort of a cascade for the first spell you cast.
Mm,
So if you cast a 1 mana spell, you can hit that, and then just draw 3 cards. You just
yeah,
keep going through the deck until you hit that. It's cool. So it has its uses. I think that this we're unanimous on. We don't even have to talk about it anymore. Like we know that this is a bad card. Like bad card. Okay, so next is balance.
nope,
So
no, I don't see a card. There's no card there, Tom. Keep going.
it's 1 and a
Gotta keep
white
it going.
sorcery. Each player chooses a number of lands he or she controls equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest, then sacrifice the rest. Players discard cards and sacrifice creatures the same way. Okay, so the thing about like that I don't get with Wizards when it comes to cards like this, I understand they have some of these kind of cards banned, but they're not very consistent with it. Like they've never like banned Winter Orb or
No,
like
no, there's a big
Atis.
difference.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Winter Orb. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Balance
but
just
like
removes it.
Armageddon. Like cards like that. Okay, so there was actually I was watching a group and it actually kind of grinded my gears a little bit. I was watching Pleasant Kenobi, not Pleasant Kenobi. The card
He
who's
says
the
balance is my kind of card. Go home.
all right,
No,
from
ban
the chat.
him from the stream. Okay, get him out of here.
All right, we need some balance here. We got to ban. No, but basically, I was watching. Who's the guy? Oh my God, who's the guy that's casual? He does the He's MTG Goldfish guy that does like the budget decks and
Yeah, I know
he's got
about
the beard.
Saffron
He's got the
Olive.
beard. Saffron Olive. That's who it is. So I was watching his commander group talk about that Wizards isn't consistent with bannings. They were talking about when I get to Iona also because they were comparing it to Iona and cards like this and cards like just certain cards like Sundering Titan and things like that they're not consistent. Like what they kept comparing it to is they're like, why didn't they ban cards like Winter Orb or Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon or Back to Basics? And I'm like, are you guys kidding me? I'm like, these cards, Iona is not even remotely comparable to what a Blood Moon does to you. First of all, if you happen to have basics, that card does nothing. And we've ramped so much in this format that losing 1 or 2 lands, let's say if you're a 5 color deck, sure, like Blood Moon and Back to Basics are going to give you the shaft, but more power to you for hurting the 5 color players. From 3 and below, Blood Moon doesn't do anything comparable to cards like this or Iona. Like they're not even in the same fucking league.
Also, Tom, remember that Arcane Signet now has had like 9,000 printings and every
Yeah,
deck runs it?
we have all the talismans finished. We have 1 million green creatures. Like Blood Moon, if Blood Moon beats your deck, make a better deck. I hate to say it to you. You should not be playing off all goddamn lands. Even if you're a Landfall Matter, I still have ramp spells. And even Landfall Matter, they're getting basics from their deck. They shouldn't give a shit about Blood Moon. Like, you're going to put so many basics into play that it shouldn't matter. And it's still making it tap for a color. Iona, on the other hand, in cards like this, like all right, well, I'm going on a tangent about this, so I might as well skip ahead to her, and then we'll go back. But because they're kind of like connected. So Iona says, when she enters the battlefield, okay, and
No,
you look
as
at
she enters, Tom, not when
right,
she
you look at
enters.
the 9 mana cost. No one's ever casted this card in their entire goddamn life. They either put it in the graveyard and reanimated it, or they played it off Kalia, or played it off any of the cards that just play this card for free. 1 mana, 2 mana, playing it for free. This card never, when we used to see it played in our play group, it was never played fairly. So the huge difference between this card and Blood Moon. Okay, let's try to answer Blood Moon. If I'm ramping correctly in my deck and I can't play my Beast Within, on a Blood Moon, what are you doing, man? Like, or if none of your removal works against a Blood Moon or a Back to Basics, and you can't just slow play on a Winter Orb or just use your artifacts, like if your entire deck is shut off because your lands are gone, then you need to build your deck better. I hate to say it to you. A lot of normal people are ramping through creatures and through mana rocks, and you should not get completely crapped on. Like, they are not even in the same goddamn league. Iona says, okay, like, you want to remove this, Mr. Mono Green player over there? I'm going to name your color, and no one else at the table cares because they're not even in the color, or that color is like 1/3 of the colors that they're playing, and they have no incentive to remove this card while you can't even attempt to get it off the field. Okay, try going ahead and getting rid of it with a goddamn colorless card, because it's not going to fucking happen. Like, nobody's playing that 3-mana artifact that you pay 7 to sack
It's
something.
Unstable Obelisk. We have
Nobody
the
playing
7
Meteor
mana.
Golem. Yeah, nobody's really playing Spine. Meteor Golem I do play in some decks like Vilas, but how am I going to get to it easily? I can't tutor for it. I
Casual
can't
Planeswalker
look
says,
for
I
it.
had Iona, but no one played it, or it was so rare that I saw her. I thought it was just it was an
We
odd
had
bit.
people playing her at the shop.
We have like
We
3
had
Kalia
two.
players.
We had 3 Kalia players at the shop playing this card. There's a huge difference between Iona and a card like Blood Moon. They are not in the same fucking league.
Also, Tom, think about it this way. Even if you're like, okay, I'm a new player, I'm going to buy a pre-con deck. Almost every pre-con deck comes with artifacts that generate you color, and a majority of even basics. So even if you do build like
Like
a deck that's
creatures that
all,
ramp.
yeah, you still
Like, a
get your
lot of them
colors
play
from stuff.
Solemn. You know, a lot of them play Solemn. Everyone is playing Arcane Signet now, like you said.
They
If
come
you
with the
can't
decks.
make colored, or you're not playing at least 10 basics, like, I'm sorry, but not everybody's a 5-color deck. Like, people can't answer Iona once it happens.
Yeah,
The card's gonna happen.
because I'm a
And
big monocolor player, so a lot of times when Iona came down, my color got called, and now I'm not playing the game of Magic. I am sitting there watching the game happen.
also, at worst, this card can come out turn 1 or 2. Entomb Reanimate. Lotus Petal, Entomb Reanimate. Alright, we're in there. Name blue. Congrats. Like, there's a huge difference. I don't like that they were comparing. Like, I really feel that Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon and Back to Basics, I'm not saying I enjoy those cards, like, but I would not put them to the level to some of the cards on this list. Like, I think Iona is still in a clear category above those.
I
Like,
would.
they were kind of joking around. They're like,
Hmm.
I've never even seen this card cast. Like, this card is not a problem. No one was playing with this card. They're like, you can't just say that because your friend group wasn't doing it. Like, there were plenty of play groups that were playing with this card.
And I don't
And
think
this
it's
is
about the play groups. I think it's about the health of the overall game. Even if only
right.
1% of people in the entire format played it, it's about how it affects the game. I think is more the issue than like how many people played it. Because
Also, we got to get a fun card unbanned because we don't have Iona anymore.
and
Like, we
it
get to
hasn't
play
broken
Painter
anything
Servant. No, but Painter Servant's still a lot of money because there's a lot of good combos with Painter
because
Servant.
we only have the one printing. I'm pretty
Oh
sure.
wait, yeah, because the only reason that Painter Servant was banned was because they were keeping Iona in the format for some
Yeah,
stupid
because
reason.
you go Painter Servant Iona, and nobody gets to play the game except for you.
Exactly. So Painter Servant is a lot more fun now. Like, you could do stuff with it. Like, there's still cards that are done with it, like Death Grip, but it requires a lot of setup. But basically,
But
I can't. I don't like them comparing cards like Back to Basics to Iona. Like, they're not in the same category. Like, I know that they may be a terror to your playgroup, but I'm sorry. Have less greedy mana bases. Like, do you have to play fetches in every deck? Do you have to play shocks in every deck? Like, have less greedy mana bases, play more basics, play your ramp, and this card doesn't matter. Like, don't have greedy mana bases. I don't know what to say to you. You don't need, like, 20 of your lands to be non-basics. Or, like, that many. It's just
I
greedy,
guess unless you're playing the Hermit Druid, I think it is to self mill yourself. But then again, it doesn't really matter because you're just gonna mill yourself, and that deck
Well,
plays
yeah,
Mana
that's different.
Dorks.
And Tainted Pact can also not. You can't play. Like, in TNT, I have to only play one of each basic because
But
Tainted
like I
Pact
said,
mechanic.
mana rocks creatures, they're making your colors for you.
Right, like if I got Blood Moon and Tymna Thrasios and couldn't at least generate mana with the creatures I played, there's something wrong. Like I know Blood Moon is a chef to me because I'm
I
a
think
4-color
back to
deck.
basics might be worse because at least that stops you from untapping, so you can't even just
Right,
float
you're
colorless.
right.
Because thing is, that's right. Because
Winter Orb
Timna
too.
is like Thrasios is like, I'm colorless activation, bruh. Use your mountains to activate me.
Yeah, but not just that, Derek, but I also main deck Seaborn Muse and like Guy's Cradle and a bunch of things. So like Bloom Tender, Priest of Titania, I have like 25 creatures in the deck that are all ramping. I have 4 artifacts. Like I have Hullbreaker.
Casual planeswalker says, I don't disagree on your take on Iona. I definitely get it. In my old play groups, the guys who played it fair. So if I got hosed by, it, I didn't mind. But
Build
reanimating or
Commander.
cheesing it or cheating out early between multiple people playing it would feel suck. It just sucks in general because even if it comes out late game, it's different than like other cards which are again play around. You should be able to play around and like again unless you're stacking your deck with like having a really greedy mana base, Iona stops you from playing the game, and that's my least favorite thing about playing the game. Like stacks to me is already like an annoying thing, but I get why they exist. It helps slow down the degenerate things that if there wasn't stack pieces they would run rampant. But Iona isn't a stack. Like Iona is a not fun card. If I sit down, it punishes you for just playing the game, not because I'm going to pick a monocolor, right? So those other things like back to basics,
Imagine being a red deck
yeah.
and trying to get around this card.
It's like
Impossible.
back to basics punishes you for playing dual lands, but playing dual lands or like non basics isn't like a part of the game. Like picking a color is a fundamental thing about Magic the Gathering, and so punishing someone for that hard for choosing only one color is very unhealthy for a format when there should be a lot of creativity, and
Also,
we shouldn't always
there's
have to build
no
our.
reason there's no reason for the other players to lift you from this. Like,
Yeah,
unless they're like a good friend of yours, they have no reason to lift you from it because if it's not doing anything to them, why do they care? And also, this card can easily be reset. In most of the decks it was being played in, you could sacrifice it and reset it to whatever you want, like and reanimate it again. Like, that's hard to do in Orzhov. Okay.
mm,
Names
you
50
mean
commanders that does it right
uh,
now. Like,
or like they said the wow, I forgot her name, the dragon chick that puts it in for free. Wow, what's her name? Kalia.
oh yeah. She's not a dragon. She's
I know,
a
yeah,
human.
well, human, whatever she is,
She
because
puts
doesn't
in
that
dragons, demons,
yeah,
angels.
angels. But then she also when she that deck also runs the World Gorger animate dead combo. So there you also have like you ran a semi animation reanimation package potentially in it. Yeah, there she is. Yeah, she's a human cleric, right? Because if you look at her wings, she's got demon, a dragon, and angel wings.
And the staff too is pretty sweet.
Hmm.
Kali is a fair card, and then they made like a nerf version of her that you can still play in the deck because it's okay. But Kali was overpowered back in the day, and now she's like not as strong as she was really. But like this was the most degenerate deck putting out Iona on like turn
Hmm.
3 sometimes, depending on the kind of hand they
Or
had.
you're playing it was Junk Reanimator, like Karlov the ghost, the ghost whatever dude, and the same thing like you said. You just go, okay, I'm gonna turbo reanimate her, shut off the players that are gonna stop me, or like the one person that's gonna be a threat. Not to mention she's huge. Like her power level is redonkulous.
I want to see if I can find like
What the old
their their website. Is it this one? Is this correct?
I don't know.
Seems correct.
Hey, Card Kingdom, you get it for only 1,500. That's a cheap one.
I forget the name of the commander website. I can never fucking find it. Because they have reasonings for why they banned everything, and that's cool to read. But
Hmm.
okay.
Anyway,
So
we're taking so
you,
biorhythm.
you agree with me that like Blood Moon and like those kind of cards are not even comparable to what Iona did. Like
No.
not even in the same league, honestly. Okay, so Biorhythm. The problem with this card, I was reading over why they banned this card, is because there was a style that got built where you just play like Sultai and you play control, you board wipe 58,000 times, you play one creature, you play this card, and everybody's dead.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you're acting like 8 mana is hard to kill people, but
in
I
green.
want to make an argument about this card potentially coming off the list, and I'm going to tell you why. So even though that strategy exists, like I could probably name 5 more 8 mana cards that just win the game in green or other strategies. Plus, we also have the creature that does it. Now it's 11 mana, if I remember, like Shaman.
You have to get it in play. It has to wait a turn. Then you have to like activate it.
I mean, if you don't have haste or anything.
Well, well, I think it's just because of how much mana it is. I guess you want to do both.
So Shaman,
Yeah, or
is
you do have to tap them.
yeah, it's 11. Which I mean, if you have 1,000-year elixir out, you could just do this on the turn it comes out, and I'm tapping.
You need a creature with power 8 or greater.
Yeah, which is not hard to do in most decks. In a green deck, that's a joke.
But it's more restrictive, so it's a lot harder to get out. You have a lot more time to play around with it.
I honestly think that if our window of cards that win the game around this mana cost, I don't think that Biorhythm is the worst Magic card printed. I know it's annoying and it breeds annoying strategies, but I also think that this is back then when interaction was a lot different and we had a lot less. And this is like when this kind of strategy, like they referred to a player who made a deck around this card and would just beat them all the time because they would just constantly board wipe and do that kind of thing. But there's already players that can do that now.
Tom, I think the other thing we're thinking of is that you don't always have to Biorhythm just to kill people. You can also just Biorhythm and put people to just an obnoxiously low life. I think its potential 8 mana, how much life loss that the card could do on its own, is where the issue comes in. Not that it's just, okay, everybody loses the game. Even if people have like 3 or 4 or 5 creatures in play, that still puts them into such a low spot where where now attacking becomes super easy, where you could lose to like
so
a
does
land
Crater
world.
Hoof.
Well, yeah, but Crater Hoof, Crater Hoof needs a board setup, and I know you could say there is the Crater Hoof Avenger of Zendikar shenanigans combo, but that's also a condition thing where you need the lands for it. You need the creature. You need enough creatures to make sure you have enough damage. It's not just play both of them for free with not enough mana, or you might not be able to actually kill anybody. And you could still always just potentially do something like a little bit more interaction besides like killing a creature, or just you could have blockers. Like if you're playing against another heavy creature based deck, like Biorhythm, without having, you would need a counter to answer it completely. Well, at least like I said, Avenger and whatever has more ways to interact with it than just counter. Biorhythm needs to get hit with a counter, or your life is going to be low. Because unless you have a bazillion creatures in play, it's going to hurt you.
Hit you. Like I don't think we gain anything from having it, but I'm just saying compared to some other 8 mana cards that we have in the format, like there are 7 mana cards that I consider are more like a Zendikar Resurgent. I consider to be more of a broken card than this.
Well,
like I think that card leads to more degenerate.
No, because Avenger of Zendikar is Resurgent is only as good as the cards that you're playing. Or Biorhythm, Biorhythm is just good on its own. Unless you wait for everybody, Tom, for Biorhythm to not be to do anything, every single player would have to have 40 creatures in play.
Oh, I get you. Well, I also feel like compared to certain cards that we have, this isn't the only thing. We have Sorin also that puts somebody at a certain life total.
It puts one person. This is global. This is a little strong. I think it should stay. I don't think it should come back.
I don't know, man. We have a lot of 8 mana cards that win. I really don't think that it would warp too much. I just think it's an annoying card. I see that we have nothing to gain from it, but I really think that out of everything on this list, it's not in as bad as some of the cards on this list.
It's maybe not as bad, but it's not something that I'd want to see play against, because it would, if someone's playing the Biorhythm deck, then you're like, I have to pull blue out. I can't play anything else because I'm just going to get
decks that exist like that in Commander.
Well,
all the combo decks, Thassa's Oracle. You're gonna tell me that Biorhythm is worse than playing against the Thassa's Oracle?
But again, these are cards that you're talking about, decks that need multiple interact. I just play Biorhythm. I don't need to actually focus anything else around it because everyone's going to get affected by it.
Then you have to make sure you have at least a creature, because then you're going to die. You're just going to nuke everybody.
Or
it's
you
not
just
just
nuke
opponent, remember?
I know it's not just opponent. It's also you. But even the fact that you just okay, I could 8 mana tie the game and let's start over. Thassa's Oracle doesn't do that without decks built around the interaction. Biorhythm doesn't need to be built around. You could just play it. I don't think it adds anything to keep it banned, but if it came out now, I don't think it's bannable. If it came out
That's what
now,
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like
I don't know.
I
I
feel like
think it
compared
would.
to some of the cards that we have now, like this card is not the worst. Like we have some like I look at Nyx Bloom Ancient and I'm like that card's a million times more degenerate. Like I look at the Great Henge or like any green or blue
Mm.
card that's been printed in the past few years, and
But
I look at them and I'm like this card or like Expropriate or like Tooth and Nail or Crater Hoof or like even Gray Merchant and
mm,
Asphodel on average can maybe do more
you're
than
still looking at all those cards as compared to what they work with. Biorhythm doesn't work with anything. It just happens.
right. But if you're gonna do that to the game, like there's a plenty of cards like this, like that just affect the board state and do nothing
Like
other than
like Worldfire, which is also banned.
well, but there's also ones that like put all the permanents back in or destroy things or like there's game warping effects that people just choose not to play because there's like a you know I just think less cards banned the better. I know that this card's good. I don't think it's insane. Like compared to some of the things on this list, it's not insane. If
It's pretty
something
insane.
if something could come off this list, it would probably be this, honestly.
I don't think so.
I really don't think that it would make everything horrible
I
because
think Lutri would 100% come off this list before
no.
Biorhythm.
No. But the problem with Lutri is
Is
that
nothing.
everybody gets to play it. That's an Izzet.
Cool. Then if you want to spend 3 mana on a turn on your turn in a blue deck to put him into your hand to copy a spell that you also have to pay mana for, good
That
for you.
doesn't
I'm
mean
glad
it
you
doesn't mean
spent.
anything.
I'm
That's
glad you spent 6 to 9 mana to copy one spell when I could play. Like I said, I could just play 6 mana. Every spell gets copied
no.
forever.
I just think the problem is having a card that's worded like that. Like they just don't want every deck to play it. They're worried about the price of the card. Like the argument that they made is still valid even before the nerf. Like they said that they're worried about the value of the card. Like that's why they banned it immediately before people went and bought it. Like that's why they did an emergency ban. This is the first card to get banned in Commander on spoilers because the power level of this card.
But that was
Because
also when Companion was just
it doesn't
you
matter.
could
Companion
cast
is
it
still
from the Companion
Companion.
zone.
If you look at modern, if you look at historic, Companion is still being played. It's still in 98% of decks. Having to pay 3 for something means literally nothing. It means even less in Commander because you have the turns to pay and add it to your hand. And copying a spell for free every game matters. Like, let's say that I'm playing black in my deck and I get the double Demonic Tutor. I'll pay 6 for that. I don't give a shit. Like, that's really strong. There's a lot of instances where I
Well,
just don't
you
want to
ha-
play with,
he
or
but
I
he
torment
has to
the
be
Hailfire and I double that.
no. Because you had well, then what would your commander be? Because he has to be in your commander colors.
There's I just play Kenrith. Like I don't give a shit. Like
Uh,
5/4 color, whatever has the colors. Like just black. Like there's plenty of decks like Grixis that could just play this card and abuse the shit out of it.
But if it's
There's
so
way too
powerful,
many
like why
strong
not just
cards.
always run all the spell copy creature the ETB?
Because this isn't free in your hand always.
It's
It's
not. It's
different.
kind of
It's
free.
free. It's giving everybody that plays Izzet the ability to start with a ninth card, which is why it needs to stay banned. It cannot come off the ban list. It is way, way too powerful.
I don't think it is.
If they did banned as companion, I would let it come off, but that's too complicated, and they don't want to do that
Yeah.
because I think that the card is fine. Even as a commander, the card is fine. But it's having a free card is always the best. Having an extra resource, like I know this from like playing modern, watching like what
But
having
we
an extra
have. But the
resource
thing is, we have other companions, and people still play them, and with stronger effects, and they're never ones that like are outright breaking the
well,
game.
here's the thing in Commander, because in Commander, the conditions to play the companions are ludicrous.
Not
Nobody
all of
wants
them.
to do it. A lot of them are really difficult. Nobody wants to convert their deck. People want to play their deck how they are. But Lutri, on the other hand, is free. You don't have to change your deck. You don't even have to queef. You don't have to do anything other than be playing colors that can abuse this card, be playing Izzet. It would immediately make Izzet the best
But
color.
he's also not like that great in effect copying one spell on an
It
ETB with
is, though.
flesh.
It
That's really
is.
not that great though.
To have it for free, oh my god. All the tutors, just any draw spell, any like you're gonna win spell like a Torment or Exsanguinate, or like especially with tutors. Like I could see this card like get play, like this card's gonna get play and it's gonna get used a lot.
The thing is, we have those already, and they
But
become so
not,
neat.
it's not as a free, there's a huge difference from when
Like I
you
said,
have a card in the 99. Like, okay, all right, like going
Tom,
into
but
something
Tom,
like
you
that.
know, as commander, if you're not committing something on turns or having interaction, something open, if you're going, okay, on turn 3, I'll add it to my hand. That's a big turn wasted. Turn 4 is where you should be
No,
ramping and
it
setting up.
doesn't.
If you want to do
The
it turn
majority of games,
5, this is
the
where the
majority
game
of
is
games,
getting kicked up. If you're spending 3 mana to basically draw the card that you want, or just play
Derek,
demonic tutor,
most
or
commander decks on turn 3 can add this to hand and still ramp.
so you're basically
Like,
saying like it's like you could also just saying, okay, I'm gonna cast Grim Tutor to put this into my hand.
like, Derek, there's way too many good instants and sorceries that this card breaks. It's having it as a free, even just having it as a sack creature or something stupid. I don't know. Just having a body, having a free spell that only it gets to play
It's not
is
free
not
though. It's
valid.
six
It's
mana
free.
in a, it's 6 mana in
But
one turn.
you don't have to play it every game. But when it comes in handy, when you're able to do it, it's gonna be great. And they have the advantage. They have a blocker always. It's also flash, so you can add it to your hand, and it's
Well,
you can
you
do
would
whatever
have
you
to,
want.
or its effect wouldn't make sense.
Well, yeah, yeah, obviously. But I'm just saying, this honor is too good for the way that the stipulations are. The reason why Companion is not ruining Commander is because the stipulations are too great for a 100-card deck to make Companion decks be batshit. The only one Companion deck that I saw that's even doing anything is the Marith one with the Kanan Fox that makes Marith cost less to activate, the one that can, like, break into creatures, you know what I'm talking about? The Nile
Mm.
one. That's the only one that I've seen be used. Is
The
like the Kanan one.
the other one is the one with you have everything that costs 3 or greater in your deck.
I've never seen anybody play the Hippo.
He
I've
gets
seen I've seen people play the odds matter one. I've seen the red black one with like a Vile Smasher and Ikra deck. But it was bad, and then they just took it apart, and like they just took that out and played normal cards because people want to play everything. Like I don't want a restriction to play a deck. Like this card is just free. It doesn't matter how much mana it costs in Commander. Derek, there are times where I just do nothing in turns of Commander and just win by turn 10. I'm the player that sits there and does
but
nothing.
you're holding up interaction. You can't at
Yeah,
the end of
but
someone's
my
turn
turn.
be like,
Okay,
I'm gonna put
if you're
Lutri in my
scared
turn.
about adding a card to your hand on turn 3 in Commander, your play group is way too good. This is not a format where you lose on turn 3, 4, 5,
No, but
6.
I'm saying
This is a turn
it's a
11, turn 12 format.
well, no, but
Like
I'm saying if like turn 3 adding it to your hand, like I said, turn 3 is like, okay, I want to play a mana dork, or I want to leave a minor, like, okay, draw a spell,
Yeah,
something at the end of
like
the turn.
let's say you play an Elvish Mystic, you add this to your hand, and then you're like, okay, cool, Demonic Tutor, Lutri, turn 4.
So you're playing four. Well, you're playing 4 color. Well, if you do demonic tutor,
Derek,
no,
anybody would
that's
have
not
used
enough.
this card. It doesn't matter. Like, let's say I rant. Like, it doesn't matter. It's too easy to use this card. And there's degenerate mana rocks. Like, there's billions of ways to use this card. Like, if you have Ashnod's Altar, like, there's a millions of ways to have used this card or make mana. Let's say you have a Smothering Tithe. Let's say you're in white. Like, there's a million ways. Let's say you have a Bloom Tender that taps for a million mana. A Sylvala. We have
Well, if
sources
you
of
have a
mana that tap
bazillion
for a lot of
mana,
mana.
then you don't. He doesn't really do much for you. For you then.
That's not true because like let's say I'm like, all right, it's time to win now, so I'm gonna play my demonic or my tutor to go get my win condition cards, and now I get 2 of them.
But Tom, you know as well as I do that almost any like copy card effects, unless your deck is tailored around it, or just win more cards. They're not get
No,
me
no, no,
to the
no,
win.
not when it comes to certain cards. But if it's not in the main deck though, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to care. Like it's not something that you're cutting from your deck. It's just
Well, no,
outside of the
well, no.
deck.
You
It's
have one. You have to
free.
have one less card in your main
It's
board.
free real estate. It doesn't matter.
Well, kind
No,
of
no,
free.
no, 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 no. It's 101. It's not. You don't play one less card. It's 101.
I thought it was you had to go down
Uh,
1-4-2. Oh,
oh,
okay.
oh, nope, no, 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 no. No,
But still,
no, 101. It's dumb because a free resource like this with no downside cannot be in the format. It's too powerful.
it's really not. Its effect's
I,
not
I,
all that
I
great. If its
but
effect, I would agree with you. If its effect,
you're thinking compared to modern
no,
standards
I'm not. I'm
of if
thinking
I'm
of
paying.
how good his effect is. It's okay. If you
People
want,
play dual caster
I
like
barely.
for the reason that certain decks like to use spells like this, and even decks that don't have effects like this are gonna find uses for this card. If you're a creature deck, you're probably not even in the Izzet colors, so you're not gonna give a shit about this card. But if you're a control deck, or like you're in the Izzet colors and you're caring about instants and sorceries, or like whatever your strategy is, like even if you're an artifact matters deck, you could double Werfer Invention or double Fabricate. Like it doesn't matter. Like you're gonna find a use for it. Like let's say a Joda deck that's playing, Sensei style. Like you could find two pieces of a combo with this card. Like there's a million uses for this card because it's. I don't think every Izzet player needs a ninth card for free. It's an imbalance of the format. That's why they banned it. The rules committee was undoubted on it. Even posting, they did an update about it, and they said that this card hasn't even come up for a discussion. Like because they have a list of cards that they talk about every time they have a meeting with the rules committee and the commander advisory group, which is the like group of like Magic commander players, like like the commander's command zone is in that thing. But this card hasn't even come up for debate. There are certain cards that have come up for debate that like they've talked about, like certain things that they would unban, but this is not one of them because of just the resource deficiency. It doesn't matter whether it's working for your deck or not. A free resource is a free resource. That's it.
Well,
That's the
whatever,
thing.
whatever you say, we'll agree to disagree. I don't think it's all that great. And like even if you are playing a spell matters deck with them, like I don't in all my spell matters with even with like hardcore copy decks, I don't run dual caster mage or the red one or the blue one because you don't want creatures, you want spells.
Well,
So
yeah, I
having
play
him
like Fury
and then
Swarm
so
and
even
everything.
having him like as a creature, it's just like I'd rather have a spell because
Yeah,
spells
but
trigger a lot more.
there's certain things that I play that I would love to copy. Like, all right, like I'm playing like my in my Instant Sorcery Matters deck, I play Rishkar's Expertise and fucking Return of the Wild Speaker, and I'm gonna have plenty of mana because I'm ramping a lot because I'm a green deck.
Then why don't you play Swarm Intelligence?
I do play Swarm
Well, there you
Intelligence, but
go. Swarm
if this
Intelligence is
is a
better.
free if this is a free card, then I don't even have to worry about Swarm Intelligence. And Swarm Intelligence is 7 mana. I have to see it in the main deck. I have to play it. I have to wait a turn and hope that it's not interacted with because it's hard to have 7 mana and keep up interaction for it. This is only 3 mana to add it to your hand.
Three
That is
mana,
not
then
the end of
three
the
mana
world.
to cast while you're also casting the spell that you want. So that becomes
But you
also
just wait
nine
a turn.
mana.
Like bouncing it on turn 2 or 3 is not the end of the world. Like you can go Llanowar Elves or a 1 mana ramp spell like a Birds of Paradise, bounce to your hand on turn 2. Nothing's fucking happened in the game. You cultivate on turn 3. You go on with your life. You got a free card and nobody else gets it. That's just
I
why
don't know.
it's imbalanced.
I wouldn't be scared of it.
I would. I think it's imbalanced. That's the problem. Is you don't know because like we haven't seen it play. But like if we just said, all right, let's roll 0 and let people play Lutri, he would be a problem. Having that extra card is a problem. It doesn't matter. If we sit down at a table, Derek, and I'm like, okay, let's sit down. I'm gonna have you draw 6 cards. You're gonna draw 7 cards. I'm gonna draw 8 cards, and you're gonna draw 9 cards. Now let's play games and see how that plays out. It doesn't matter what the cards are. I could have fucking like all fucking lands. It doesn't matter. If there's a inconsistency in resources, that's imbalance in itself. It doesn't matter whether the cards
But
are good.
you're
It
talking
doesn't matter whether
generically where you have to
this card
now
is
you
good.
now have to build it. So if I'm like I want to play
You
my
don't have
mono,
to build around this.
you
You
do
don't.
you need the colors. If you're not in the colors, you don't get to play it. So that means
A
you
lot,
have to
a
be
lot
an
of
is a
people
player. It's
play
not
it,
every player. It's only people who play blue and red or blue red X combo. So if you're playing the mono green player, you're playing the mono blue
but these
player,
colors
the
are
mono
very
black, the
popular
mono
right now.
white, the green white,
Derek,
every
wheel
other
deck
this is what there's only like
wheel decks are huge right now, and this Like they would love this card. Love this card. They would play the shit out of this card.
Yeah, but
Like
wheel decks are also like
they're
more
one of the
top tier.
best.
They're not in the casual format.
No, but people play. I'm not talking about like Narset wheel decks. I'm talking about people playing like Brawling Shabraz, where you just wheel and you deal damage to them and win. I'm not talking about like a CDH deck. They might. I don't even know if they play this card in CDH. They probably would because it's a free card. Why not? It'll come up sometimes. Who knows? Like it's a free card. They would 1000% play this card in CDH just because it's a resource and you have it. It doesn't matter. But like you think about wheel decks and like you get the double wheel. Like Shabraz is now at 30-30. Like, and then maybe you're copying it on top of that. Like, there's just a million ways where I could see this card be used. It's a great card.
Oh, it would be
Like,
good. It would be good for if you're in that color.
The fact that it's costing 6 mana means literally nothing.
No, that means a lot for Spell Matters deck. If you're especially trying to do some
But
like
it's not
a
just
one turn, okay, I get like a good copy spell. But if you're trying to go off, I'm trying to win 6 mana. Unless you have like a way to generate a lot of mana, or you have a mana doubler,
but
6 mana is a lot.
You just keep bringing up Spells Matter deck. That's not the
Well,
only.
I'm not saying
thing
whatever you're targeting with
it
him.
could be anything. It could be a rampant growth for who the fuck cares. A
If
Harrow.
okay, if that's what you want to use, good for you. I'm glad you spent 6 mana to get one extra land than me.
It's not. You're doing 3 mana at one time, getting a free card to the hand, and then playing it. This card's bad. This cannot be in the format.
Cool, and I'm glad you spent 5 mana to get a second land when there's a 5 mana spell that just does it too. That would actually grab you 3 if you have Spell Mastery.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, any free resource, like, you can't deny that if we started a game and every game I started with 9 cards, regardless of what the card is, I would win a majority of those games. Hands down.
No, that's very different.
Hands down. No,
you have to pay 3 mana. No, Tom, you have to pay 3 mana to put the card into your hand.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Let's say I play 3 mana to play a creature that requires a 3 mana activation. What's the difference? Like it doesn't matter. I do it in Commander. It's not like this resource doesn't come up in Commander. 3 mana is not the end of the world. 3 mana is pancakes compared to the amount of mana that decks make in Commander. It's easy.
But also if you're in green.
No, because you could just play mana rocks, and people do.
They do, but they never generate as much. Or having something that mana doubles.
Mana crypt.
Well, you're talking now. You're talking CDH like mana rocks. We're talking like in a casual format. Very few people buy Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, and slam them down. I own one for my one deck that's kind of CDH.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's doable. It's not impossible.
It's a free extra slot only certain players have access to, is what I think most people have an issue with. Like the card itself isn't broken, but it's the free way to only to certain players at no deck building cost or restrictions.
That's the problem. Any free resource makes a color combo ahead.
But in that regard,
it doesn't even matter if it was a mono red card. It would still be banned.
But in that regard, then every companion should potentially also be built because you build to it. You have a free card. It doesn't matter, Tom. It doesn't matter. I built my deck. I have an extra card than you. It doesn't matter that I have it this way as compared.
Because the limitations, it's what this one needs. Because each one of the companion are way different than this card. Every single one of the companions is balanced because you have to build your deck around it. This doesn't require that. You just play Commander and it's free. You can't compare them. That's not even a remote comparison to what this does. And still, in Modern, they pay 3. Luris gets 95% play, like Urion gets 95% play. The Giganta gets like 95. Like, companions still get play in other formats.
But you also get to run multiple copies of stuff, which makes them better because, like, with Luris, like, you could have multiple good cards that could keep reoccurring.
I get that, but what I'm saying is a resource is a resource. Even in 1v1 competitive Magic, paying 3 to add a card to your hand that's a free resource is good.
Yeah, I get that, but also we're also talking like if we're talking about the generic ban, like most Commander, like we said, is casual. Like the competitive scene takes up is like what one
get played in everything.
No, it would get played in blue-red decks.
Well, right, but what I'm all blue-red decks would play this card, and they would have one card up on every other style of Magic that isn't blue-red. So you sit down at a table, they get a 9th card that you can't interact with because it's in the companion zone, and you sit down with the same amount of cards as your opponent, one up because you have a free card, and that's a deficiency on resources. That's why this card is not okay. And that's what he's saying in chat also. Any free card is any free card that doesn't require any deck building restrictions, because that one is just free. The other companions are way too hard to build around. Like I've
but
seen
they're also
people
but
build
their
Luris.
effects are way better than his. Is the
Yeah,
trade-off?
you're right. Luris is amazing. Luris is amazing. I seen Dean build him as the commander. Like, you don't even need to have him as the companion. Like, you don't even need to keep the entire deck low cost. It's just Luris is amazing. Urion is 100 times better than Lutri. And even Giganta is really fucking stupid, but I mean, at least Lutri's got an effect on it. And I think that the Rakdos guy is better because if you have odds cards, that it doubles the fucking damage. I think that a lot of them are better, but you're not seeing them get played because of the deck building restrictions. People don't want to do it. This requires nothing. If you sit down and you sleeve your deck and you play blue-red, you have this card. You sit down, you have a second commander or third, depending on if you're
All right, then, Tom. Then how about this? Considering that nobody really cares too much about as companions, why don't we call companions technically outside of the game, get rid of them, and just have them main board only?
See, actually, I made this argument when we first
Because
did. I was like, well, I don't see the point, but the commander committee is like, they worked with Wizards to make it work in the format because they wanted the cards to be able to be played and for us to have something that's like a side cute little thing to build around. But I kind of agree with you because I think that companions in general are strong, but the better ones, no one's going to play as companion. No one's going to do a Luris as companion deck. No one's going to build 2 and lower. It's not going to happen. They'll do it as the commander because he's a great card. And same thing with Urion. You can't even use Urion. Urion's the best one. Could you imagine if you were able to use Urion as a companion?
yeah,
He'd be batshit.
but then like you need so many more cards in your deck.
Right, but Urion would be just in Planeswalker decks. Like every ETB. Like, he's good in fucking everything. Your Saga deck. Well, you can't play him in that because he's got white, but like, he's just he's strong. I kind of agree. Like, companions were a mistake. You see in 1v1, they are broken.
When they
like,
came out and they had to like rewrite the rules of how they worked.
yeah,
Because they were yeah, I didn't like the like I said, I know that they were trying to do. I feel like they were trying to do like, hey, we could kind of have commander cards in a standard format, and people get really hyped about it, and then people realize that you kind of broke this. They're like, yeah, shit, you're right.
see,
So
I knew that me like Lutri was going to be one that we were going to disagree on, but I still believe that
I just want my honor boy.
I understand, and people really want to play him as the commander, or just play him in decks because he's a cute card. People really love what it is. It's not a terrible Magic card.
I mean,
It
we
can play,
have dual caster mage, we have twin caster mage. What?
right, but it's if you took dual caster mage. Actually, this one doesn't combo with Ghostly Flicker, right? Because this one is. There's a reason that this one doesn't combo with Ghostly Flicker, right? It's because
When it enters the battlefield, if it says if you cast Lure Tree. So if he enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you get the copy. So if you you just blink him, you don't get the effect.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to cast him.
That's why, because dual caster mage just says when it enters.
Yeah.
So they at least thought about that. I remembered that like it doesn't combo with Ghostly Flicker, but holy fuck, if it did, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. Because that Ghostly Flicker would be a $50 uncommon or common.
Well, we have it. Well, it works with Neruha or any of the copy dudes.
Right, but Narumeha doesn't get to sit as a 109th card, uninteractable. I get to add it to my hand whenever I feel like it. Card. Like, I don't know. We could stop talking about this now. We can get to Black Lotus.
Should unban it.
This card needs to stay banned. So that's the first card that we're disagreeing on. Biorhythm, I still believe, should stay banned, but I really think that it's just one of those cards that I think that this is going to age poorly just because of the power level of cards coming out. Like, I look at Chu Lane, and I'm like, I'd rather play against Biorhythm than have to deal with Chu Lane. Because I do play Interaction as a blue player. I look at Biorhythm, and I'm like, okay, whatever, you're going to play Biorhythm. Like, there's a million other ways that you can win for 8 mana.
Again, you can't think of it as how do I interact with this. It's what the card does by itself. Chulane by itself doesn't do much unless you have the cards built around it. Biorhythm is one of those cards that it doesn't. It just does, like, what the effect does. Like, just look at the card by itself. Forget everything else in the format or any other card in play. What's it do? Whereas you look at it's like Chulane, there's no other cards in play. What's it do? you see the difference where like, okay, you have to have the thing built around that. Now the potential for the build with like True Lane is ridiculous. But on a single card by itself, you have that's I think where that's where Biorhythm is getting its like where
Plus, that deck would probably play this.
probably they run a lot of
Yeah.
creatures. They flood
I
the board like
don't see why
crazy.
you wouldn't. Yeah, I understand. Okay, I don't feel like we even need to talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is dumb. Like, I mean, we already see what's happening with Lion's Eye Diamond and
Mm,
Underworld Breach and
yeah.
Dockside Extortionist, so we don't need to talk about this card. Also, I feel like leaving the Power 9 off, aside from Time Twister, just because of price restrictions.
Mm.
Actually, I hate saying we should ban it because of price restrictions, but there are certain ones that I say that are this price that should stay banned. And like this isn't even an argument. And
Yeah,
I
no.
do agree that this one should stay banned also, but maybe in time this card's gonna not look so
I
bad.
don't like braids. I'm
Yeah,
glad
so
braids is
okay,
gone.
here's my little conversation about, Bandis Commander. So actually that could be a way that Lutri is if Bandis Commander happened, then we could have like a Bandis Companion and then allow Lutri to be played because I really don't think Lutri's a bad card.
And I don't
But
think braids would be terrible in the main board.
yeah, this is the problem. Is there's a lot of cards on this list actually that are fine in the main board, but because their commanders actually this one I still think is fucking stupid regardless. But
One at a time. So
yeah,
braids as a commander, honestly, yeah, because like you could rarely. This is anything that's 4 mana. You have to be scary because with the mana accelerant, we have 3 different ones that makes this a
Crystal,
turn 2.
Lotus.
Sorry, we have.
Are you forgetting
So,
Jewel Lotus?
sorry, we have 5 different cards that we could play in these colors that gets us out turn 2.
Not counting the really low costed artifacts.
No, I'm counting. Well, no, I'm counting those. So you have Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Dark Ritual, and uh and
Chromox.
and Lotus.
Chromox.
Well, you would need another one because you have to make 2 mana
Oh
turn.
right.
So anything that makes 2 mana turn 1 for you that could float around gets this out turn 2. So say you go first, turn 1 you do that, turn 2 everyone plays 1 land on your turn. Boom, you do this. Okay, pass turn, sacrifice, begin your upkeep, sacrifice the 1 land you played.
It's dumb.
Cool, pass
That's why
turn, next
most people
person.
would play this on turn 4 to at least have things out, but
I mean,
also this plus Bitter Blossom.
Mm-hmm.
You know? To anybody who doesn't know what Bitter Blossom. This Magic the Gathering card.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very expensive right now. It would
Yep.
go 10 million times up if Braids got unbanned.
And this was the Command the Dreadhorn or the Dreadhorn card. That's the same thing except with armies.
Yep, and it'll make one every upkeep because you sack it and you get a new one. Because the problem with Command the Dreadhorde is it just makes it bigger if you don't sack the token.
Mm-hmm.
But you will with her, so you have 2 ones that it works with. Yeah, this is the powerhouse play, and it's not like you can't get it in black. There's a million fucking ways.
I don't like braids. Chaos Orb,
Yeah.
we know why that's banned.
Yeah, it's just it's a
stupid.
toxic card.
It's also like I have to flip my card in play. I don't like. Yeah, I get what they were doing way back in the day, but
and
like
blow up lands also is the problem.
Yeah, but if I'm holding up a card and dropping it, it's like okay, it destroys that.
Yeah, no, it's
one of those. It's also it's really jank effect back in the early days of Magic that like they made fun of with the other with the one to rip up from the unhinged and glued. Yeah.
Gas confetti.
Mm.
Pretty sweet.
Which is actually one of the more expensive ones because it's hard to find them all together.
Oh man, this card, Coalition Victory.
You win the game if you control a land of each type.
Yeah, Wooburg and 3 sorcery.
And a creature of each color. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about.
There's a Dryad Elysian Grove. There's the Prismatic Omen.
Oh, look at that! Land you control are every basic land type.
Prismatic Omen does it too, I believe.
It does, and it's 1 mana less and an enchantment.
It just doesn't give you the extra land play.
Yeah, it's fine. It does what it needs to do.
And then a creature of each color. Well, Tom, there's no good 5-color creatures we could play. Yeah,
no, definitely not.
Free Coalition Victory from Banned Prison.
Niv
No.
Mizzet? Yo, what about Derek? Niv Mizzet Reborn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could get this if it hits it in the top 10.
Yep.
That's stupid. Oh, it's
I think they like that because they just want a free we win the game card off of just like cast a spell, I win.
This can stay banned. I 100%
Yeah.
agree. There's also a lot of ways to play sorceries for free, and the condition is too easy. Like 5-color decks are too strong nowadays, so
Yeah.
no, they're too brain dead. So I don't want a card like this.
God,
It's even gotten better nowadays.
imagine playing that in like a Kenrith deck, like a hard, beefy Kenrith deck.
It's bad. I don't want to play against it. All right, so channel.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
The big no-no. Yeah, this one is 2 mana and sorcery. Until end of turn, anytime you could activate a mana ability, you could pay life, and if you do, add a colorless. Obvious reasons why this is banned. It's just a quick double fucking everything.
Mm.
It's like it's a high tide in green, but but also works with your mana rocks, creatures, lands that aren't like. There's no condition to this card other than it's 2 mana.
The closest thing we have, it's because it's for I think anything that, or is mana reflection anytime you would create mana, or is it just from lands?
Anytime a permanent would be tapped for mana.
Yeah.
Same thing with Exclamation.
So the closest thing we have is 6, because anything that's lower than that, it says lands.
Yep. There's not a single
Or
other card that
it's swamps only if you're looking at like Cryptghast.
Yeah, things like that. Your Connor Revenant, things like
Emrakul, Aeon's Torn, I agree.
Okay.
This would be instead of Kozilek, you would run this.
Yes. And I think still in the 99, this card is a problem considering Ayavugan, ways to tutor it. Getting to take an extra turn with this card is a huge problem. The other one is way more balanced. Like, I had the other one cast on me. Derek was in the game. I had the other one cast on me, and I didn't even lose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, they can't always. Well, I happen to have creatures that were like sort of bigger than it or would trade with it, so he couldn't really do a lot with it. Like he killed a lot of my creatures, but I had a Golta with double strike, so like he couldn't do too much. Like it was a weird situation for him. Like he couldn't interact with my Zen. Actually, he did mess up because he could have popped my Guardian Project because I had a return to dust in my hand. He could have popped my own card, and he almost could have played Zendikar Resurgent and popped the Zendikar Resurgent, but I was 1 mana off. But he really couldn't do a lot because I don't have a lot of self targeting like in my dinosaur deck. So the other one is a million times more fair. This one, taking an extra turn, can't be countered, can't be targeted. Fucking Annihilator 6.
No,
the
Tom,
highest
it's protection from colored spells is the thing
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so it could still lose to a Vanishing Light.
But the thing is, those becoming so random, like so, are only played in very niche decks. Like you usually have straight interaction that targets. And the thing is, even if you sack it, say somehow, some way, Emrakul's the only thing in play, it goes back into the deck.
It does.
You have to exile it, or it's coming back.
That's the big problem. Is there was also infinite turns if you have like a lot of things to do it. All right, so this card, fuck.
Yeah, no good.
I still think that this is broken even in the 99. It's funny because obviously this card is banned because they're discriminant towards Moonfolk.
Yeah,
There's no other
right?
reason why this card is banned. So to anybody who can't read Upside Down,
Mama Emrakul is unjustly banned. She's weak. Yeah, that's right. She loses.
Yeah.
She loses the 15 squirrels.
15 flying squirrels. They can't just.
Squirrels fly, Tom. They're flying squirrels. Okay, Squirrel Girl.
Right.
Squirrel Girl is getting the beat down on Thanos.
I saw this really quick, and I thought it was a Tog for a second. But, I was like, dude, it's a Tog. What? But Arayo. So this. Do you want to know what's dumb about this card? Is it doesn't even say you. It says when the 4th spell of a turn is played, flip Arayo and Ascendant. Also, with Jeweled Lotus in the format now too, you could Jeweled Lotus into this card, which is your 2nd spell. Right? That's free. Let's say you got 2 lands. Ponder. Draw. Play another 0 mana or 1 mana rock or whatever. And it's flipped.
Cool.
Into an enchantment, which is way harder to deal with.
And it's an effect, Tom, it says that it's your opponent's first spell, not yours.
Yeah, not yours. For 2 mana, this card can stay banned even in the main deck.
Yeah, the Moonfolk needs to stay banned. I agree. Never. I don't ever want to.
So the only things that we haven't agreed on so far are the Lutri, and I'm like a 5th with Biorhythm.
It's like we're like in between.
Well, yeah, you're still like, like I'm still like, I think it's fine to stay banned, but I really don't think that this card is like the demon of the like, I get that it's annoying, but
No,
there's plenty of other ways that people win, or
no,
like worse cards than
it
this, like Armageddon or things
yeah,
like that.
it
Like, I
comes
don't know.
back to my whole thing is even if only 1% of people played it, I think it's just what the card does is the issue, not
Right.
like how powerful it is compared to other things, or it's just
Right.
what it
I
does.
also just kind of wish that they would be more consistent with certain bannings. Like, if they want to ban stacks and like land destruction, like they should just do it. Like, I don't know why they make examples of certain cards and then keep other cards banned that are like similar, not the same. Like, I'm not saying that there are cards that are very similar to some of these cards. But getting into the Falling Star, this one's hard to read, so I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah, the OG.
There's probably an errata for it too. So, uh